have decided to come to our session here this morning. I know it's one of the first working sessions, whilst most of you will have already started working a lot at the International Transport Forum, meeting up with people yesterday, meeting up at breakfast meetings, and really getting into the swing of things. And I know that the weather is on our side, definitely. I've been told by somebody here from Leipzig that whenever the International Transport Forum is taking place here, it's absolutely brilliant weather. So thank you very much that you have actually made your decision and come inside, even though the venue, of course, is absolutely fantastic. I don't know how you made your decision to get here today, and if you had been checking up with the Westin Grand or any of the big hotels, of course, you would have had access to the wonderful service that we had from the hotels to come over here to the fairground. But of course, those decisions are not part and parcel of our daily life. And in our daily life, we always have to make the decision, how do I get to work or wherever I need to go? Do I take a taxi? Do I take the tube? Do I hop on a bus and maybe have some side effects on the bus that are not all that pleasant? Will I catch my plane if I take the underground, or will I actually need a taxi, or is the taxi the worst decision? So many people are faced with decisions of that kind every day, and as you will have read, ladies and gentlemen, the introduction to our session, it's more than 10 billion trips that are being taken every day by people in urban areas, and of course door-to-door and seamless traffic and travel is absolutely important in order for people to get around, for it to make it an economic decision as well in many ways, both for the economy and also for the individual. Now we're going to discuss many questions here with this absolutely fantastic panel. My name is Conny Schimmel. I'm happy that we're going to spend the next 2 hours with each other. Let me introduce the people that have been put forward as masters in their class, and they will share with you their views, their perspectives in 5-minute introductions. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a little bit of a discussion here on the podium, and then it's up to you. And as we have 2 hours, I expect, and I've been told, that people here are very prone to discuss things. So let's get started. The gentleman sitting next to me is Professor Tetsuko Akiyama. He's from the Hokusei University in Japan, and will share some specialized views, especially since he is particularly interested in the mobility impairments, and so some particular challenges. The lady to his right is Rosina Howe-Teo, Chief and Market, not Information but Innovation Officer and Group Director of Land Transport Authority in Singapore. Very happy that you arrived here yesterday, I hope seamlessly, and no problems arriving here. A gentleman who didn't have to travel all that far is Mr. Willem Lindenberg, in the middle. He is the CEO of the Greater Hanover Transport Association, and he will share some of the views of how they did it in the area of Hanover, how they built a public-private partnership that is working, that has been noteworthy, and you will be talking about that in a moment. On his right again is Susan Zielinski. I would call her a world mobility citizen, sometimes based in Michigan. She's the director of the Sustainable Mobility and Accessibility Research and Transformation Center there, and she'll be sharing sort of her eagle's view. Last but not least, coming from the City of Love and the city of the forerunners of bicycle hiring, and now also of hiring of electric cars, is Serge Amabile. He's the Marketing and Sales Director of Autolib France. We have already sort of pre-discussed who's going to kick it off first. We'd like the practitioners to take away and lead with their example. So, Regina, we would like to know, I mean, first of all, can you please explain why you're not an information but an innovation CIO? Microphone number 3.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, 73.
Oh, 73.
Okay.
I've been asked that question many times. I joined the LTA 13 years ago after having been with the private sector for about 17 years. So, you know, I've been in the industry pretty long. I did join them as Chief Information Officer, but I brought along quite different perspective to the government agency. And the chief executive and the board members say, I think we better change your title to innovation because I think you're going to overturn quite a number of rules and regulations with a very different set of thinking. And I've been the chief innovation officer for the last 10 years. It has been a wonderful journey, and I found land transport particularly interesting, giving IT professional like myself many opportunities to do things. And I think that at the moment, this is the best moment because we're talking about seamless transportation, and a lot of seamlessness come from the use of technology to deliver that experience. Perhaps I'd like to share with you what I'm going to bring to the audience today. Last year, we had a new minister. One of his first mandate to me was that, look, we have several public transport operators for train, for buses, taxis, and everyone serves their own purpose. So when you want information about a particular service, you have to go to one particular website. Now, LTA, can you do something and bring all these together? So we came up with this new service. It has a mobile version, it has a portal version. It's called My Transport at Singapore. And as you can see, we have something for motorists, for the commuting public, for cyclists, and in particular, we introduced a function called the data mall, because seamless transportation is about applications, and applications need data. And we recognize that we are the ones with a treasure trove of data from the many systems that we managed. And as you can see, from the day that we introduced or we opened up the database, we received more than 150 applications in just 3 months. And the profile of the applicants are third-party developers, companies who wanted to weave in, you know, some of this data, and also research and university researchers. This will give you a flavor of what is available. Out of all the data that we have offered, we've seen a fantastic suite of applications developed by very young third-party guys. And I can vouch for you that it has actually been a significant cost saving to the government in the sense that we now need not have to develop the full suite, but offer data to members of the public. And it gives us opportunity to also co-create. I'd like to, in particular, introduce this young gentleman. We first bumped into him when he was 26 years old. He is a biologist by training. He was waiting for a bus one day, sitting at the bus stop, and he got very fed up, not knowing when the bus was going to come. And guess what? He just sat there and started developing an iPhone app. And that particular application called SG Bus has become one of the top downloads in Singapore. And he is now a co-founder of a software house, and he has been voted by the giant TV channel CNN as one of the top smartphone application developers. I think when you see success stories like that, I think it's heartening that I think I've done something right somewhere.
Sounds very fascinating. How many people do you actually serve in the Greater Singapore area?
Singapore has a population of 5 million plus
Visitors,
people.
is it easy to access for visitors as well?
Visitors, that we have 30 million tourists and visitors to Singapore over and above the 5 million. And these applications are all open because we work through other agencies. If they're tourists, the Tourist Promotion Board will give them pamphlets on all these useful applications and services.
Thank you very much, Regina, and we're going to come back to you in a moment. Let's get to the second practitioner. The Greater Hanover area has, and we will hear that from Wilhelm in a moment, probably just as much people to service maybe a little bit less. But you and your team actually came up about 10 years ago with a great idea of sort of getting everybody together under one roof. You will explain how it works, and maybe we'll talk about the pitfalls later on. Take it away, please. And by the way, your contribution is going to be in German, so whoever doesn't understand German should put on his or her headphones now.
Well, first of all, thank you. Perhaps just a few remarks concerning the Greater Transport Authority in Hanover. It was founded in 1991. And at the beginning, our task was to combine public transport services, i.e. buses and train services. And in 2004, we then figured out that this was not enough because it was about moving people, providing mobility, and that would no longer just be served by buses and trains, but by other offers as well, such as car sharing, and certain offers were already beginning to appear on the horizon at that point. And if you now look at the lower left-hand side, there you can see the beginnings. At the beginning of our mobile card, as we call it, you can see it on the upper right-hand side. At that point, when we introduced this, it was a possibility of combining public transport services with car sharing. And if you look at the lower right-hand side, this is our car park. And we have really significantly enhanced it for our customers. We can see the tram services, the German railway system, car sharing have all been included. And the unique aspect was that we also combined this with taxi services. So this mobile card offers you the possibility to actually use taxis as well. I'll just briefly give you a run through this. This is our mobile card and its offers. First of all, of course, you can use public transport services, and then it provides you also access to the German rail system with the help of the rail card. We have a bicycle service, we have car sharing, taxi services, and we also offer services in the area of baggage delivery and beverages. For example, people who wish to have their milk delivered in the morning, we can supply such logistical services. And this is a one-stop shop, i.e. we have a one-invoice system which then pools all of these different services under one umbrella. And this is a question that is really at the forefront of our reflection. How can we integrate all of these different possibilities, taxi, rail card, bike sharing, or rent a bike, etc., and how can we integrate these services in an intelligent manner? And there are different possibilities, of course. Östra is the Greater Transport Authority in Hanover, the Public Transport Authority. And then we also have the German railway system, Deutsche Bahn, that as a federal service can offer this at a federal level as well. And then we also have the automotive industry that could at some point take on such a task as integrator, if you will. We have several projects. For example, Mercedes is offering car-to-go. We have car-sharing projects, and Volkswagen is also starting off a new project called Kika. So perhaps at some point in the future, the automotive industry might take on the task of being the integrator of these different services. Or perhaps, another possibility would be credit cards. Credit cards offering the full range of services in this area. So the question now is, who is going to be the Amazon of public transport services? That is the question that is moving us, and that is at the basis of our reflection. And we, as a transport authority, are trying to explore different models in order to enhance and broaden our base, in order to make sure that the customer has a one-stop shop and that these various different transport modes can be used in a seamless manner or way for the client.
Bleib mal ganz kurz im Deutsch.
Let me speak German for a moment. How difficult was it to sort of get together all different transport operators? Was it difficult to sort of unite them? Well, it was not so difficult when it comes to car sharing, but it was more difficult with taxis, because taxis in Germany, cabs in Germany, usually are run by individual entrepreneurs. They're not so well integrated. There's an association of taxi operators, and so we somehow managed to get them together, but that was a challenge. I would like to thank you.
Paris, I think poor old taxi car drivers, or rather car parkers, have had a tough time in the last couple of years. First of all, you'd had some schemes in Paris that made car parking spaces available for bicycles to be hired. And now there's a new contender, there's a new boy on the block, so to say, and that new offering is about electromobility. I believe 1,200 cars already on the road. But
Yes.
you will correct me if I'm not right on this point. But the astonishing thing, it's not just Paris itself, of course Paris as at the center, but 46 surrounding cities. Now that sounds, again, from a logistical point of view, getting so many cities under, let me put it that way, under one roof, quite a challenge. How did you do that, Serge?
Wow, I'm not alone. Thing is, all started, in fact, on December 5th, so we are very humble with the service because we have a 5 months history. December 2011, we launched, so roughly speaking, 5 months from now, we launched the Autolib service. So there you have a photography. For those who know Paris, we are at the very center of Paris because you can see the Arc de Triomphe at the back. And this was the very first car that we launched. We had 250 cars at the very beginning, and now we have more than 1,200, and we'll have more than 1,700 cars by the end of June. You have to understand first that Autolib is the same principle, as you said, as Velib, which is it's a 100% electromobility car sharing service. So these are 100% electrical vehicle. This is clean and safe. First point. And you can go from point to point service, which means that you can take a car wherever you want, wherever there's a charging station, Autolib, where there are cars, and you can drop your car wherever you want in another station. You don't have, it's a one-way. You can do the one-way with the service. It's a public service delegation. So as you mentioned, we are working for the city of Paris and 46 surrounding cities. So it means that we have an obligation of non-discriminating for all the people. The other thing is we run all the operational tasks. So it's a public service delegation, but we produce all the electrical vehicles. We construct, we build, we maintain all the charging and renting stations. And we provide also all the supervision of car availability. So of course this is, that's a huge challenge. Just to give you an overview, it's not very something to be read, but just to show you the 47 cities. What I just did with my right hand, in the red line, these are the 20 districts of the inner city of Paris. And around you have the 46 surrounding cities. This does not mean that you could not go with an Autolib in the white localities, but this means that you have to take, and we have charging stations within these blue cities. And the car, which is a challenge in itself, has 250 kilometers autonomy. So it means that really for urban, mobility, this is really, really something that is very practical for users. There, just to show you something, as we talk about seamless, we have applications, and we can. This is on my iPhone, for example, but on smartphone, on the web, you can check anytime all the available cars on every one of the 450 stations that are set up from now. You can see every parking slot available, real time, a 24/7 service. So these are the things we do. Just to tell you, we are in the rollout phase. So the end of the rollout would be at the end of June this year. In the 6-month service, we will have rolled out 1,750 cars, more than 800 stations. In Paris, just to give you a reference, you have 300 subway stations. We have 218 charging stations. So it means that the coverage is good, and the users are very happy with this. So it's a service where we have a 24/7, of course, assistance. So 24/7, you can call. There are people, you know, call center. Very funny. That's a service that is paid by subscription. So you can subscribe from 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, because we have a non-discrimination obligation. So even for tourists, you come from 1 day in Paris, you just subscribe from 1 day, you pay 10 euros, and then after you pay for every slice of 30 minutes. That's it. And you can pick the car wherever you want, you can drop it down wherever you want. And just to tell you, in a bit less than 5 months, we were going to hit in 10 days 150,000 rentals. We have 50,000 clients that pay for subscriptions. So really things are moving, you know, in consumers' minds, and a lot of people in Paris are getting used, you know, to this service. Mm-hmm. So we are in the full rollout phase, but already, you know, on the business dynamics, things are going okay from my viewpoint.
As I did with everybody, I would like to sort of ask one more question. I have learned yesterday that half the population in Paris does not own a car, which on the flip side, of course, means that half the population does. Yes. Do you think that your offer will convince some people to forget car ownership and rather rely on your offer, of course, amongst others?
First of all, it will convince more easily. The easy fight will be the people that do not possess a car. And in Paris, that's huge. And anyway, our starting clientele, our first users are very young. It's 20 to 34 mainly, and we have an index over the French population which is 202. So we double, you know, the part of this young. And the young generation, when you do you know, round tables in studies, they, you know, sometimes they just get to Paris for one job, and in 2 years they'll be in London, they'll be in New York. So, you know, in this kind of capital cities, people move. So not owning a car is not an issue, and they project less identity, you know, matters that they are the generation before. So owning a car begins to be a fragmented, you know, topic. So for this new generation, it does not seem to be an issue at all. And we have more than 30% of our customers that have a car, and they just take it for very specific purpose. So you just have to go to one mall, or you get to go in the very center of Paris, and you just don't want to have, you know, an issue of parking your car within Paris or paying, you know, for the parking. So you just take the Autolib, you go there, you can even book a parking slot. So.
Thank you very much, Serge. At this stage, Susan or Sue, as you know, Sue, we have heard the sort of flip side of car ownership. Has that new thinking already arrived? I mean, do people that are growing up, in your observation, think more about how to get about rather than what means they have to get about in urban areas?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by grown up.
And the new generation coming up. Maybe we've already grown up. And of course, everybody here in the audience. Yeah.
Well, what we are seeing, as we've heard, is that more studies are showing that 14 to 18-year-olds are, for example, seeing the car in a fragmented way. They're seeing there's a decline in people getting licenses because driving interferes with their texting, and the millennium generation is thinking about having access at their fingertips of more options and more connected options, but they don't need to own it. Mm-hmm. And so I think there really is a mind shift in the millennial generation, and that's starting to actually filter up. It's a trickle-up effect.
Sounds
up in age,
really,
I mean.
Sounds really good. Now, a lot of communities around the world that you've been working with, and small and medium-sized enterprises that have been servicing these communities, have to find new ways of tackling the normal urban mobility needs and wants. Where do you think, could you take us along, our role models that we should know about, our role models that could be applied? I mean, and would you, of course, consider your three pre-speakers already presenting those kind of role models?
Absolutely top-notch. It's been really exciting, this panel, because it's perfect examples of seamless connectivity. And I think one of the focus areas that we've been working on is really mapping out what is the new mobility grid that people already have. So what are the types of connectivity that we need to be looking at? I think if you're a planner, you think of spatial connectivity, but you might not think of technological connectivity. And if you're a technology person, you might think of integrated wayfinding and fare payment and parking and traffic management, but you might not think about the physical. And then there's the institutional, which is also key. We do a process in the cities and regions that we work with, and we start by bringing together not the usual suspects. So we bring the usual suspects like the planners and engineers, but then we also bring together the big business and small business and the NGOs. And so on the big business side, we work with Ford Motor Company, for example, rethinking the role of the automobile in the whole system. We work with IT companies, and then we work with small businesses like young entrepreneurs who do iPhone apps or who start new auto rickshaw services that connect the dots. So we try and connect the dots and by mapping out. So we look first of all, and you know what, I want to start with, I don't know if, can everybody see this slide? I'll just do a quick foundation here. I don't know, can I ask you, is there anyone in the room who's ever had a frustrating transportation meeting? Raise your hand. One of the things that we've found by working in these cities is that there's a tendency to want to focus and prioritize and pick one thing or pick the winner. And I think what's counter and what I see in these examples and what I see in the really good examples around the world now in the evolution of the young generation thinking in systems is that we're not prioritizing so much, we're thinking about the whole system. So my experience in meetings is that if it's a 2-hour meeting, the first hour and a half or hour and 3/4 is focused on what's not working. And then someone says, oh my goodness, we were supposed to think of solutions, and then there's a big long brainstorming of solutions, but it's a laundry list. And then someone says, voice of reason, I think we should prioritize. And then there's this thing about, well, what's better? And really, I think that's a little bit like God saying, okay, you can have a heart or a lung or a pituitary gland. And you have to choose. And you kind of, I'd probably answer, you know, I want all of them, and I want them to work together seamlessly. So I just want to, I think I can work this. So what we do, just to summarize what we've been doing in these different communities, is we map out, we bring together the people in the technology, the people in the service area, people who are with bus rapid transit, people from airports, people from modes of transportation, and also the design. And we map out what's already there. And then we identify pilots to enhance the new mobility grid. And what we found actually in DC, we did a mapping process where we put a red dot wherever 2 or more things connected, and we got too many red dots. We actually had to up the ante, and we had this grid across the region of places where 2 or more things connected and were supported by technology. So we do this in India, South Africa, Brazil, the Philippines, and China, and we've just started too. But the really exciting part is that this shift in paradigm from single mode to looking at the whole system and actually starting with the positive and the exciting as opposed to starting with what is not working seems to change the way that we do things, and it allows us not to have to do a whole master plan, but allows us to start in certain areas that are working and start with the flow. And I'll end there.
Thank you very much. And I think we're going to ask you for some more examples later on. I would like to draw in Professor Tetsuo Akiyama now. Akiyama-san, Japan has a special mobility need. Could you tell us something about the connected mobility and the system and your analysis about that for Japan, and maybe then what we could also learn for other places?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Akiyama from Tokyo. Now I work in Sapporo. Hokusei Gakuen University is Sapporo. So this time I discuss the public transport. Firstly, the effect by the improvement of mass transit. And the next slide, please. This is a easy transfer, example of easy transfer. The one is bus and rail, and another is monorail and Shinkansen. Left one is Strasbourg. Under photograph is the easy change, which use the bus and same platform of LRT. Unfortunately, our country is very few example. The second one, monorail and the station, is Kokura. Firstly, monorail station had stood 150 meters from Shinkansen station. Now joined it. And
Too fast?
okay.
Yeah? Okay. No.
Oh, here.
Forward or which would? No. It's yeah.
Oh. The second one, our country has a law that effect by the measurement against the accessibility of public transport. This is an aim in order to that disabled person and elderly people may make social participation possible. It is a law which removes a barrier. This picture is a countermeasure for wheelchair and visual impairment. Wheelchair persons, pink one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First one, elevator and escalator. Second, dissolution of a level and level difference and grooves. And third one is wheelchair space. Fourth, low floor bus. And fifth, disabled person's toilet. And others, 7, 6 information system for visual impairment, and 7 signal of sounds. Barrier-free status at facility for many people in 2005, tactile rate of barrier-free is 82%, lamp is 53%, toilet is 42% at 2000 HIPs. Now, much more upgrade. This is another law, same law and another purpose. The example of new law, public planning concept, that 300 more fundamental plans, home plan by administration and result in design and construction based on this is. That's all.
Thank you very much. I'm very impressed by your presentation because it seems the impetus has come by lawmakers, i.e. politicians, who then sort of ordered laws to be passed, and therefore action was taken. And I would actually like to sort of reverberate that idea here on stage. I mean, who is it first? Even when I listened to you, you said, oh, last year we had a new minister. He or she had a new idea, and therefore we actually finally were able to do what we always wanted to do, and bring about some new ideas that would further seamlessness. Do you need insightful politicians? Do you need the technical solution? Or who is first, hen or egg?
I think in land transport is a highly political sensitive area. You can't run it from internal and organization. Technically, it is possible to do all these things years ago, but you do need a politician with insights and to say that, you know, let's bring everybody together, and somebody needs to play the aggregator role, and none better than, you know, the land transport agency themselves. Yeah. Okay,
and was that for you? That was very helpful that you had this one minister, because otherwise probably you wouldn't have mentioned it.
I would say that in Singapore, most of the ministers are very IT savvy, so they do understand all these possibilities. For us, we have done other projects where we have brought both the private sector together with us. But in the space of public transport, we have public transport operators who are public listed companies, and there lies the challenge. How much do we get into their space? But at the end of the day, it's public transport. It is there to serve the public. I think that overtakes all other considerations. And when you place public in front, that's your customer first, everything falls into place. And I think then it's not so difficult to convince the other stakeholders. But there is still that delicate line of how you balance what they do and what we do.
Thank you very much. Willem, ich würde Ihnen das gern noch mal spiegeln. Das heißt also, wie
I'd like to reflect this again. So to what extent do politicians have an influence? Do they have to exert a certain pressure? Do we need laws and regulations? Or is it simply, is the trick done by saying, well, we have these clients, there is an economic pressure because every minute or hour lost in a bottleneck or in a traffic jam is also, X, Y amount lost for the economy? Well, I think the companies are the operators, but to make that clear, well, the ideas really came from the companies themselves, because they are at the interface with the clients, and it's not so much state authorities or agencies that came up with the ideas. But we have to say that we support these initiatives. I think the further integration of these systems, something that I tried to sketch out in my presentation, is an open process. Germany is also a very car-prone country, a country dominated by the automobile. And, perhaps, next to the automotive industry, there are other companies that are taking up a new, an important role, because the car no longer has this privileged status of being the most, or the most ideal transport mode. So I think things are changing, and companies are coming up with new ideas, and the authorities really have more a regulating role, i.e. setting up a framework in order to bring about these various services and pieces together, and people will then make their choice on the basis of this. So in the greater area of Hanover, you decided, well, we wanted to have all of this, or was it something that came afterwards? Well, you know, it wasn't the fact that we were positioning ourselves against the car in a way, and we really tried to reflect upon the fact that, well, you can't do away with the car entirely, so car sharing is a possibility, and we saw this as a complementary piece. Not about, you know, being the owner of a car, but being able to use a car for certain segments of the journey, and therefore it was quite logical for us to gravitate towards the car-sharing companies and try to come to an agreement with them. Well, Goethe once said, well, then that's how things fell into place. Well,
on your side, in fact, your existence as the entity that you represent actually depends on the political will. So you actually have to fulfill that political will. Can you share with us what has happened that politicians of 46 towns actually got together, plus Paris, and said, we want this?
Well, first of all, it's been supported by the mayor of Paris, Monsieur Bertrand Delanoë, who has had the courage, really, and anyway, he launched Velib, 10 years ago, and Velib is a success. It just is something, in the landscape of a Parisian that is something normal. It just exists. You don't, wonder why Velib is here. A lot of people are using it, more than 200,000 subscribers of Velib. So it becomes something really inserted within the the Parisian landscape. And there's been a strong will, and this project has been supported by Bertrand Delanoë, and then 46 mayors of surrounding cities joined him. And today we have other, surrounding cities that are knocking at the door saying, maybe I want to jump in. So could you... So we have ongoing discussion with new surrounding cities, because of course they see Autolib cars, in their roads, in their streets. So they say, well, maybe this could be something for my citizens, very useful. But we have had very strong support, and the mayor of Paris has made an amazing job, because first he has a very strong will, which is he makes decisions, and quick decisions, which for us, industrials, we have an issue, and the main challenge is the speed of implementation. Because I'm in charge of sales, and sales have to come in, because we have to bring revenues to finance the service, of course. The sales come, when the speed of implementation brings you to a coverage, of the service that is acceptable and that is of quality for the users. So that really is a challenge. And all the mayors, so we work for Syndicat Mixte Automobile, which is just a society that represents the 47 mayors, and they delegate for them the decisions. And we work for this company, the Syndicat, well, it's not company, it's syndicate, Syndicat Mixte Automobile. They represent the mayor, and with them, it's a real private-public partnerships. So we really, discuss the issues, and they understand that they have to win, and we have to win. So it really is an insightful partnerships. There's really intelligence, and nobody wants to unlock, positions. Everybody wants to unlock positions, so we do not, we avoid debate of principles. We really go in the user best experience viewpoint. So we are very supported by the public authorities, and really there's been an amazing energy, strong will, quick decision maker made by Bertrand Delanoë. It was key for the project. And for us, industrial, really, speed of implementation is really key for us and for the users.
Thank you very much. Yes, Sue, would you please sort of pick up all my questions and maybe also add, you're working in 5-6 countries. obviously on the ground you have experienced the same partially frustrating planning processes. Does it help or hinder if politicians get involved?
This is such an absolutely pivotal question, and I think it's the one that we've grappled with most and actually learned the most about through the different experiences, because I think in the diversity is where you begin to see the opportunities for doing things differently. And you know, I think about the City of Love being the epitome of inspirational leadership and political will. But I want to ask another question of the audience. Is there, and you don't have to show your hands this time, but is there anyone here who's worked in a place where there is not political will? I mean, I think we've all probably experienced that situation where we don't have the perfect mayor. And so what you have happening now, I think partly because of the new way of seeing things and partly because of new technologies that allow us to do things in different ways. We have, and new partnerships. We have the capacity to start in different places. So I'm going to give you an example. In India, it's not really the place you would start with government. We started by working with the Confederation of Indian Industry and a wonderful initiative called City Connect. And you may hear later from Gopal Srinivasan, who is doing wonderful work in Chennai. And what happened there is as soon as the shovels went in with pilots for integrated mobility, which you can actually do by making better links and enhancements and applying these apps and connecting even public transit with taxis, car share, bike share on, doesn't have to be public land. You can even have it in grocery store parking lots. So you can do all sorts of things without even having to go through policy change or land use change. And I know that's a travesty coming from a city planner to say you can do it before policy change and land use change, but to wait for that is ridiculous. So, but what's happening now is we're being enabled by both mindsets and technologies and by new fractional use service approaches to actually be able to do stuff without having the leadership. And then when the leadership comes along, you can really go places. Does that?
Sounds absolutely fantastic. And I think the last conference where you and I were, we saw a number of examples where the fast bus tracks were put into place and made a big change both to the city life and to the fastness enabling mobility. Maybe we'll have time for that later. All I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, is, and I can't see those of you on the right-hand side properly, but if you raise your arm, certainly the young ladies that are equipped with a microphone will. I already see one person in the first row. So will you give me the chance of first asking one more question, and then it's up to you. And I know that you're all gearing up for discussions. Akiyama-san, you have been pointing out to people with mobility problems. You have been pointing out that some of the changes were made with a specific view to the elderly, to those with disabilities. Why is that so important in Japan? And should it also be important in all our societies? Most of us are coming from a background of aging societies. It's on.
I think it is important door-to-door service because they do not use the mass transit. So in our countries, paratransit system was far behind the 1980s compared with the advanced nations. For example, Canada, United States, England, and Sweden. However, for the past 10 years, we established for nursing care service, taxi system, and the operation permission system of and non-profit organization. Furthermore, Japan developed the universal taxi also in technology it is closely advanced nation by new operation of progress paratransit and DRT system. There are Japanese paratransit system, welfare taxi, nursing care service taxi, paratransit, and normal taxi. This universal taxi in Japan, we developed 2 years ago. But London taxi and lamp taxi in San Francisco, London taxi is probably before century. This is a San Francisco public transportation and paratransit system. Paratransit dispatch center, there are many systems, and also others, public transport section. Unfortunately, Japanese is not built up like the system. This is Setagaya 1. I compared with Setagaya and San Francisco. There are many trips in San Francisco, 1.2 million. Unfortunately, Japanese Setagaya, 6,000, and including other transport, 300,000. So in the future, Setagaya and Japan will be grow up now. That's all.
Thank you very much. I already have some person there and the lady over there, the gentleman, and I'm just standing up to see that. So the first three I would like to listen to now, and all I can read, sir, is ECF, but I'm sure that you can share your name and background with us.
My name is... Hello? Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Randy Zhivnitsky from the European Cyclist Federation, and you mentioned at the very beginning that there are 10 billion urban trips happening, and we know that between half and 2/3 of those trips are of such a short distance, 3 to 5 kilometers, they could be done by bicycles. We also know that in some cities, including here in Leipzig, the car sharing companies are also offering cargo bicycles. And I'm wondering, together with the fact that most shopping trips for food shopping, about 95% could be done by bicycles if they just have a basket in the front or bags in the back. I'm wondering if each of the speakers could tell us a little bit about how bicycles are part of the solution. From some of the speakers, I've already seen that there are possibilities to integrate. I went to the Singapore website and saw that there are some maps there available. But I'd like to know a little bit more about where bicycles are part of the system. And for Mr. Autolib, is there any possibility of having electric cargo bikes be part of your system? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we should do a quick round on that, and maybe since Singapore was specifically addressed, you would like to start?
We still have a long way to go with regards to incorporating cycling as part of transport node. But we have recognized that we do have to deal with the problem. At this point in time, we have provided the bicycle paths and where the bicycle parks are to make sure that, you know, they're not parked everywhere and become a nuisance to others. But policymakers are looking at how best to integrate cycling, pedestrian walking, and the moving vehicles.
Thank you very much. Willem?
Yeah, in Hannover,
Well, in Hanover, bicycle is increasingly important, and it is politically supported. We have bicycle paths, we have the idea is to have a 25% share of journeys covered by bicycles, and that would then be combined with the public transport services. One thing is beyond any doubt, and that is that the bicycle is increasingly important.
I'm okay. Is my mic? Yes.
Yes.
So for electrical bikes or electrical assistance bikes, we'll be delighted to do this because I work for a visionary, which is Mr. Vincent Bolloré, and the Bolloré Group is specialized in energy storage. And this is why we get into this amazing history about electric vehicle car sharing service. So we provide, electric storage. So we have batteries. We can put them on bicycles. This is not the priority for the moment, as long as I know, because we are mainly on buses. So our next step, we already have buses for electromobility. So it's 100% electrical buses, and we begin, to deploy this with some cities that are very interested. So we have ongoing discussions on electrical buses. Thing is, previously coming to Autolib, I was working for a big retailer, which is Carrefour. I think that this is, the bike could be something very interesting if you have some few things to buy and within the very center of the city. If most big retailers, such as in France, Carrefour, for example, the hypermarkets formats are always outside of the cities. So their bike is a longer way to go, but it could be. But there are some formats, such as the supermarket, that is very relevant for this kind of offer. So there are very small things that you have to carry, and just for things that you need for the night or for maybe 1 or 2 days, this could be very interesting. But what we see in Paris is that major part, the bulk of retail is in hypermarket business, and there you have to take the car. And then for going shopping, sometimes people go not alone. This is why the car could be also a solution, because very often we see people go shopping, to Galeries Lafayette, for example. But, sometimes they go in groups. So sometimes, if you have to buy a trouser and you're a man, sometimes there's the lady with, because you want to have the advice, because you do not care and you just want to just do not want to argue, going back home and saying, this was not for you. So what we see is that for shopping and some very specific shopping, whether about fashion, there are very often a group, or 1 or 2 people together that move.
Thank you very much, Sue. Again, I want your eagle's view, so to say, looking at several projects, one of which I remember was sort of the Bogota thing. Forget about the bus, but apart from the bus, there were specific ways to connect bicycles. And in fact, I believe on Sundays, the bus track was actually used just for bicycles. From your experience, is Bogota sort of, a complete, like a different star, sort of in a different universe, or is that happening everywhere?
No, I think it's happening everywhere except where it's happening in reverse, which we have to stop. So in some countries where motorization is growing, we're actually losing the ground that we have for bicycles, which I think we have to start to rethink that. China's the one that comes to mind first. There's a lot of actual policy that works towards removing bicycles from the roads because it stops traffic, apparently. So some of that thinking, I think, needs to be revisited to look at the proper mix of bicycles with the rest. But in terms of the eagle's eye view, we just launched a prize for new mobility enterprises. So businesses to do really great things that are either technologies or services in sustainable transportation. And the number of really original bicycle-related innovations were vast, and there are even more, and they cover goods movement, they cover tourism, they cover getting medical supplies to far-flung areas, getting water, they cover anti-obesity programs, they cover tourism and economic development, and what else? Fashion, as you had mentioned, and even advertising in the little triangle part of the bicycle. So it's the role of the bicycle has great potential to grow, and there's also more innovation on the vehicle design and technologies in the electrification that can happen to them.
Thank you very much. Your question, young lady. And there's one other young lady approaching you with a microphone.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our technician just needs a second to switch it on.
All right. This is Abha Negi. I'm from India and representing an organization called Swayam, which has been working for making public places accessible. So Professor Akiyama, I was really happy to see that you introduced this very critical aspect of accessibility in your discussions here. And would just like, two things. One is universal design the basis of planning? Are we looking at, even when you have designed your electro cars, has that been kept in mind? And what has been the congestion levels on the roads of Paris where it does not add to the congestion on the roads? Because that's the biggest issue if we want to introduce some thing like this back in India. Our roads are already choked because public transport system is taking a backseat, and people, for them, lifestyle is have a car, have your own car, and move on. So introducing any such concept will find opposition from the policymakers, despite this being a clean transportation system as far as energy goes. So these two aspects, one is congestion on the roads and one is universal design, because I see most of you have not even noticed here that we have a step here to come onto the stage. So we've not internalized the tenets of universal design, that it affects each one of us. So how are we taking it forward in our own projects that we are heading? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe Serge, you could pick up the answer first.
Yes. As a public service delegation, we have a non-discrimination obligation, which means that the service may be accessible for any kind of person. So we have some people that are there are two people, in fact, the person disabled and then another person which drives the car, and we can take the chair at the back seat or in the safe. So it's been, we conceived the car for having this possibility, really. And so this has been integrated, but in non-discrimination, we have, for example, things we plan, but not at this scale, which is about, the baby seats at the bottom, of the cars. This seems like a detail, but really you cannot imagine how many ladies, that have a young child. And it really is a mess, sometimes when you want to go to one surrounding city to another surrounding city with a baby of 3 years old, then you say, okay, I'm going to take a car, and if there's a baby seat, that's going to be great. So this is also something we are implementing. But it's not easy to manage. Just to tell you one thing, for example, which is that the baby seats can be stolen, and we cannot insert them, for example, within all the cars, because not everyone wants a baby seat. So it means that we have to manage baby seats, which is another, topics. So we take all this into consideration because we have, as a public service delegation, we do not discriminate anyway. And that's the point I can access.
Anybody else wants to go on? Professor, please.
It is difficult to solve the bicycle or universal design in the congestion of Asian countries because very narrow pedestrian way or very narrow vehicles way. So we have to make much more road in our countries. So our countries also started up the bicycle program, but still not solve about that things. That is narrow space. And also population is twice or third than European countries. So that is very big problem.
Thank you very much. I hope that question was answered. If not, just come up to the individual speakers and grill them after the session. I have two more people with a question, and the gentleman in the middle was first, and then it's your turn, sir.
Hello, I'm Thorson from the International Federation of Pedestrians. And, well, we have talked before, But it's interesting to see that in a summit of seamless transport, there still seems to be a seam between all the other transport and walking. And we are in a session of door to door. And where do we get out of our house? Walking. So I think that I would like to point out to the panel that is this part, and that's a very, very important one that has not been touched, and you have not that into your wording. So I will ask you to think when you plan, think pedestrian. We need to come to the bus stop, we need to come to the station, to the car park, etc. And what do the public transport companies do to get the right space on the sidewalks, also for the passengers?
Thank you so much. Rosina has already taken the microphone and she's off and running.
Yeah, I'd like to attempt to answer those questions. When we first launched this service called My Transport, we did a survey with the public and we asked them for more feedback. What else can we do? And a number of these feedback exactly what you have said, you know. Within stations, can you tell me where is the lift for wheelchair bound? So that, you know, as they come out, they can open up an app and say, go left, go right, rather than go around the building and then find that you have to go up steps. Even outside buildings, you know, where is the nearest wheelchair-bound friendly bus or taxi? So we have already put in as much of this information as possible. Yes, we do recognize that all travel start with the first mile, last mile, which is your feet. And we are looking at walking. For this, I'm involving the community, the people themselves, to contribute, you know, this last mile, first mile information, because the authorities can only do that much. And I think, again, like I say, public transport involves everyone. So let's see how it goes. Maybe by end of this year, I can share this community program.
So much. Thank you so much. Sue, I'm just going to turn to you because I hold you as the expert for everything. How about walking?
No pressure. Well, you know, I hope you don't mind if I divert, because I've just been so excited about what you said about wording, and it does have to do with walking. It comes from there. And wording and language and the way that we talk about this stuff is so key to whether we can really transform it. And it reminded me of, we had a brainstorming about the kind of language we use for stuff that we do. And somebody came up with the word sidewalk. And then we all thought, yeah, right, it's on the side of what? It's on the side of the road, which is central. And so I think of that also when I think of the word alternative, because it really worries me that we will always be alternative. The sustainable options will always be alternative, but they'll never become the mainstream. So it's like saying women are alternative men. I prefer, you know, options, or, you know, we have the range, and it's this, you know, next generation. And there were a couple of other words that came to mind. There's a planning term called transportation disadvantaged, which means that you don't have a car. And there's another word that is called captive, which is like, you know, the Speed movie. You're captive in transit because you don't have a car. And what's another one? Road closures. When that happens in Bogota, where everybody takes over the streets, to me that's a road opening. That's not a road closure. So as Rumi said, and this is, I can't remember the exact words that Rumi had, but basically create a new language and create a new world. We have to start talking about this as the sexiest new adventure, and this investment and not a cost, and this more choices that are more connected, as opposed to, we have to live without our car and have a sacrifice. So I just wanted to talk about that in relation to the whole pedestrian inspiration.
I've just seen Willem raise his hand and probably taking it away on his feet.
I, first of all, would like to thank you for reminding us of the fact that we need to think of the pedestrians too. Yesterday, I noticed when I arrived at Leipzig, I just wanted to cross the road to get to my hotel. It took such a long time because there were so many traffic lights. So at the moment, I understand the conflict that comes up between the car and pedestrians. That's also a very active debate we have in Germany. Who takes precedence? So far, it has always been clear precedence is always given to the car when it comes to traffic light control. But now, due to the new developments, we are discussing giving more rights to pedestrians so that they would take precedence over the car, for instance, in order to get to the tram station. But that's a discussion we also have concerning bicycles. And there is still a certain degree of conflict between the different modes of transport, but it's no longer so clear that we are just focusing on the car. We have developed our awareness and also integrate other modes of transport.
As a pedestrian, knows that you have to mount a lot of stairs, walk across a lot of bridges, go down, and then know that you're on the wrong side and you have to go back. So this gentleman will take up the next question.
Thank you. Am I on? Am I on? Yes? Okay. My name's Jeremy Highway, supporting electric mobility. When I think of spontaneously hiring a car with a potential of many different hiring points, I'm reminded of a joke about why stupid dogs have flat noses, and they answer because they chase parked cars. And I saw on the graphic, often it was just one vehicle at a particular point. And my question is then, what systems are in place for people hiring a car to be able to book the car while they're not actually at it, so that it will still be there when they get there for it, and other questions of user friendliness in the system.
In fact, what we provide as a service is you can book a car or you can book a parking slot. So we offer this service which is free of charge, and we reserve and we book a car for one very specific subscriber, user, that call us at the call centers, and during 30 minutes we book this car, and this car could be only unlocked with this RFID card. So we can book the car 30 minutes before, and you can book a parking slot 90, 1 hour and a half minutes before. So we provide this service, and this is really, for enabling people to make sure and make the service 100% reliable. And we have an obligation in the public service delegation that if there's not one car which could be available for booking, we have the obligation to give the information in real time to the user to inform him about the 8 stations within a surrounding of 1 kilometer where we can book a car for him, and we have an extra delay for this very specific user. So we have this obligation. So you can book a car which is really seamless, because when you can book, really, for you, it really makes more fluid, and very much more pleasant your trip. So we have this obligation, and we have this service. So you can book a car, you can book a parking slot, and this is why sometimes you see there's only one car, because 2 are already booked, for people that called previously. This is why you see only on the slide 1 car sometimes. But sometimes there are 0, and he calls and saying, okay, downstairs, when I go down when I just look at my window, I see there's no car. So could you just inform me and book me a car that is available at the nearest station? And we give him the nearest station. We send him on his PDA, on his smartphone, the path just to get there, if he doesn't know, and then the car is booked, and it's locked for any other subscriber.
Thank you very much. Your system, Serge, is very much IT-based, and which sort of draws me back to Regina, because data, IT, plays an important role in your concept now. How much would you say is the system now IT-driven, and how much do the services on the ground reflect the maybe better IT system? And because the IT system has become much better, have the service on the ground also does the service on the ground also have to improve? I hope you got my question.
Okay, I think so.
The IT is brilliant. You've got many people downloading apps. I think you mentioned 15 million apps for a population of 5 million. So everybody in Singapore must have at least 3 devices.
Yes. We do have the highest population of mobile phones.
But does that reflect the service on the ground? I.e., people who are spoiled by such great IT, don't they want the same kind of service on the ground?
Okay, let me try and attempt to answer this question. First, I would say that in the beginning, it would be the data that would drive the type of applications that you can make available. Because without the data, that is really quite difficult for you to even think about applications. But once you have applications out there, then the commuters and the public, they're spoiled for choice. They now want not only real-time data, but they want it done their way. They want high amount of personalization. And that's where you will find, the government can't play that role because we are not structured to be everything to everybody when it comes to services. We provide the basic. And that's how public and the community comes in to provide that variety and that creativity. And like any private sector business, things comes and goes because flavor change, taste change. So you create that vibrancy. I'm not so worried about whether it stays there forever because the world changes, the developments changes, the commuter has got different needs. And as long as you create that environment, the ecosystem to allow things to happen and react and be responsive, I think that's more important than making sure that the application stays there forever.
Okay, let me rephrase my question then. An IT-spoiled population might also want that the tube, the train is running every minute rather than before every 2 minutes. So do you find a pressure having an IT-based system that is working so well that they say, that the population will say, well, actually we want better services?
Yeah, I think it comes to some reality checks. You can't run trains shorter than a certain headway because of safety reasons. So there's a bit of public education. Yes, they've been clamoring, can't I have it, every minute? No, you can't. You have to be practical. You explain to them why. But that's where the intermodal, the other connectivity, the other modes of transport can come in that, look, if you can't wait and the trains are crowded, then try buses, try taxi. Then they say, I don't know what taxi, I don't know where the taxi stand is, I don't know what bus number, comes. That's where these apps come in and they help you decide how to get there because this is not your normal way of traveling.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I'm sorry I had to sort of push you on that point. I don't know, Serge, you just had the microphone, then you put it away. Was that an indication you wanted to say something earlier? Sorry.
Yes, I guess so. It's true that for running such a service of car sharing is very IT intensive. Really, it's just is amazing. But at the end, on the field, we definitely very often, there's human behind, because every morning we have to answer the very easy question, which is tomorrow morning, where do I park? And I bring the cars. And this is a very easy question, but these are really, regressions model and complex mathematical models to answer these questions. Because when you have 450 stations at the time I'm talking, and 1,200 cars, where do you put your cars every morning? This means that every night, we have 500 people, well, depending on the night, but 500 people, keeping the cars, in every side of the cities, and in the 47 cities. So it's very IT intensive, but you have to manage your fleet. and putting, the cars in the morning at the right place for the users, because the user would not understand that all the cars are within the center of Paris, because they are coming from the outside, surrounding cities of Paris. So you have to manage all these things, and this is human. So of course IT really helps make it seamless, but at the end of the day, on the field, a lot of people and human intervention are necessary. And even, for the charging kiosk, or even, the renting kiosk, we have the subscription kiosk also. All these, can be monitored at the headquarters, but sometimes, you have a technician that has to go on the field, to really open, the kiosk and say, okay, the renting station there needs to be rebooted, if we can reboot from the headquarters.
Thank you very much. Susan just wanted to add, and then it's you, sir.
Yeah, I was really intrigued by your question about what comes first. And I think that the more that I've gone along seeing different places, the more I realize that there isn't any one thing that comes first. And the more that lots of things can happen at the same time, the better. And it seems to be that, for example, in South Africa, they get frustrated because they don't have bandwidth, and so they can't do a lot of these high-tech things that would be really useful to connect the minibuses with the transit system. But, they have power outages and stuff goes wrong. On the other hand, they have transit and accessibility in their constitution, which a couple of other countries don't have. So it's sort of saying, well, what are the good things? Let's take an inventory first. This is what we do when we do our first meetings with the people in the different cities. We say, what are you proud of? What do you think is really great about what's here? And then we say, great, let's look at that, put it on the map, and build on that. And so that way, what you've got is you're working with what you've got and who you want to work with. And people can come forward with enhancing what's there, as opposed to waiting around for what isn't and complaining about it. And I'm not saying that there isn't some really great value and catharsis in complaining about what's not there, but really to move it forward, we need to just work on every single point that is possible in your condition and your situation.
Serge wanted to add, and then
just one point. In fact, when we see people in the focus group, or when we have users' feedback, in fact, users are very mature, in mobility. What they just want to have is the options. Give me the options, and I will do my job. Because a lot of our clients say, well, I went, with Autolib to a Velib station, and then the last slot, I do this with a bicycle. So the intermodal, as long as we give them the means and we open the options, and that maybe is the role of the public sector, just to open the options, and give all the options and access to information. And sometimes on individual means of transportation, such as the car, allow to book the car, because this could be something not seamless at all if the car is not there. But really, they are very mature in mobility. They just want to have the options. They manage. They know how to organize things. And they are not, like kids that you have to take by the end. They are really mature around this. This is what we see. And we just find, combinations that are not very usual, but the users just find by themselves.
Thank you, Serge. I will come back to the individual options and what that means for future strategies, but I would like to bring this gentleman in.
Thank you. The name is Manuel. I have some more questions Manuel Delia from Malta. I have some more questions to Serge on the Paris project. Because in your intervention, you spoke about the tough decisions and important decisions the mayor needed to take. And there was some discussion earlier about the importance of leadership and what to do when that isn't there. Now, if there is a city, it would seem to me, where a project like yours would work, that would be a city where half the population does not own a car. If it would work, and if it makes so much sense to have essentially a taxi service without a driver, what are the tough decisions that are necessary? Do you benefit from a public subsidy to operate? And is that needed because of the technology you use? do you benefit from the exclusions of others who would want to provide a similar service in competition with you? Do you benefit from the use of public land, which I'm sure 1,700 parking spaces come at a premium in a city like Paris? Why is political leadership necessary in a project that, at least intuitively, should make so much commercial sense?
Thank you very much for coming back to the issue.
So on the first aspects of subsidize, we do not receive any subsidize. This is an industrial project made by and financed by Vincent Bolloré. He's been putting money, you know, in the last 10 years for developing this kind of electrical battery, so no subsidize. Of course, as we have a public delegation, we have the parking slot even within the center, the very center of Paris, which, you know, a private company could not do the same way at all. So, of course, this is very easy for us. But after, the competition is open. So really, we just run this public service delegation. There are other modes, you know, and other competitors that begin, you know, to structure their offer. But we have been supported. We have the tremendous advantage to have this public service delegation, been really, as you mentioned, supported by one man, which is very charismatic and who really makes decisions. And that was key. And as I mentioned before, speed of implementation for industrials that have cost, you know, running. You need to have revenues. And on this, speed implementation is key for us. So really having this strong political will, because the mayor of Paris wanted to have, and to, as I was mentioning, open the more options for the Paris citizen. Say, okay, you have the bicycle, you have the taxis, you have the tube, you have the trains, you will have the car sharing, whatever. You have the whole option to have to free your mobility. And this has been something he never, you know, diverged from this. And after his personality is very quick decision making. And this has been key for the project. So, to get back to your question, we have no subsidies. Of course, the speed of implementation of our project has been fostered and really boosted because of this public service delegation. And we can be not anywhere in Paris. I'm not saying so, not even in the 46 surrounding cities, because these are the mayors that really choose, you know, the places of every station. But really, if we were not a public service delegation, there will be places in which, for profitability reasons, we would not implement, you know, or set up, you know, a station, because there's very few, you know, usage. So if you are really, if you're not with a public, you know, if this was not a public-private partnership, this would be totally different. And for the user experience and coverage, this would be really different.
Maybe we can contrast that, and I will switch to German now with Willem's experience. Herr Lindenberg? Die Frage ist...
The question is, what have your experiences been in the last 8 years, running since 2004, since you created this integration? Have people really left their car parked and have entered this grander scheme of connected services? Well, of course, we have users, but from our perspective, we still have, their numbers are still too low. We have roughly 2,000 clients. That is certainly a very low figure for this project. And of course, we need to further improve this and work on the project. And certainly what you mentioned, the information technology, opens up new options in order to create a greater network and to find a combined invoicing system. Right now, I'm still faced with the problem that I have to pay separately for the train, for the car rental, and for the other transport modes. So we need a single-stop invoicing station that works for all, and where we don't have separate invoices in this sense. So we always have to think about who will integrate all of these services in this. And I know that you, for example, would work with the public metro system RATP in Paris. I think it's necessary to create a greater network of public transport services, and it has to be something that is that works in a holistic way for the client. There shouldn't be no seams there. It should be seamless in the sense from the planning of the journey right up to the point where the invoicing of the journey occurs. It should be a one-stop shop. And therefore, what I'm saying is that we're still a fledgling project in this sense. We're still in the infancy of the project. We need to develop it with the help of information technology, and we need to engage in the relevant conversations with the industry, but also with the public authorities in order to realize and implement this idea of a completely integrated public transport service. Well, looking at the system in Singapore, perhaps there is one cue you might take there if you include young developers in your projects. Well,
the thing is, bidding is a complex matter. You tackle the issue. Really, but the thing is, we have to create the offer from the very beginning. So we have to insert, the subscription of Autolib, starting with what they call in France the Pass Navigo. So we really have, because we do not want to have to manage, things or subscriptions with different dates, because if not, in terms of bidding every month, it's not going to make it anyway. So we have ongoing discussions, and we really have to insert our offer within what's existing. And starting, with the same period of time, you take the card for 1 year, and the card insert all this intramodal, things.
Sounds a good idea. Akiyama-san, when we talk about getting here, for example, to Leipzig, I should think that 95% of all of you have come here by plane. And when we talk about seamless integration, most bigger cities now have an airport just in front, sort of their doorstep. But sometimes you find that it's badly integrated. Sometimes you find it's fantastically integrated. What can you share with us from your insights? You've been looking at airports and integration into, inverted commas, the normal traffic flow very closely.
Thank you. We are studying about the Haneda Airport from 2006 to 10. And there are many new technology we developed. I introduced first one. Yeah. This is a new wheelchair. The left person, the building of an airport and the inside of aircraft were having the separate wheelchair used until now. And the user can use one wheelchair by the railway and airport building, and the inside of aircraft in Haneda Airport. A new wheelchair enables attachment and detachment of an outside wheel and can use it also an aisle chair. Center of the aisle chair that we can use takeoff and put it on both of them. We can do that. That is one technology. And the second technology, a barrier-free passenger boarding bridge. Previously, the passenger boarding bridge that connect aircraft with airport terminal have tended to be comprised of different levels. The Haneda Airport International Passenger Terminal is the first to introduce stepless passenger board bridge, which have no thrift levels, wider and flatter walkways, means less stress for wheelchair users and other people with limited mobility when using the passenger boarding bridge to board and alight from aircraft. This is non-step passenger boarding bridge, light one. Oh, that's all.
Thank you very much. Very, very impressive. Now, I'm not quite sure. I think Leipzig is very consumer friendly, but sometimes even when you arrive at Heathrow or at Frankfurt and you get at the wrong gate, it sometimes seems to be an anti-obesity program against your own will. You know, up the steps, over, down the steps, turning, getting to the next terminal. So sometimes airports can be rather on the sporty challenge side. I was picking up a word that Serge had used earlier, and I think that's one issue I would still sort of like to throw back at you. You were talking about individuals' choices, that you sort of, have trust in the consumers, or all of us, to make the right choices. On the other hand, we can only make the right choices if we have the choice, i.e. if we don't just have a car standing outside our front door, and if we actually have the choice that is feasible. If I only have to walk 500 meters, a kilometer to the next good public transport system, I won't use my car. If it's 2 more or 3 kilometers, I won't. So again, how much incentive do we need? I mean, do we need a place maybe like Singapore where driving a car becomes so expensive that for economic reasons you say, no thank you, I'd rather use public transport only because it's seamlessly integrated, you've solved all the other aspects. Is that the choice cities have to make, and is that also a choice that traffic managers have to make?
Yes, I would think so, that most urban cities will be driven to move towards that direction. In Singapore, unlike other cities, we are an island state. So we literally have limited space. We cannot, there's no land around us except water. So that you can't, there's no hinterland. So I would say land management is important to us. It is an affluent society. The young aspire to own a car, to own a house. And because cars are very expensive in Singapore, the minute you own it, you want to drive it even to the grocery. It's that kind of thinking. And so it is quite a challenge for us then to work on everybody, including motorists, that for short trips, if there are other choices, present them. And we have started this scheme where we introduce what we call premium buses to residential estates that are not served by public transport. They come in for a peak and they pick up people who live in residential estates where there's no public transport, and it goes all the way express to the city. It has proved to be a very, very useful service, highly taken up, and now we've come up with a lot more similar schemes and offer that as what you say, an alternative. Again, at the end of the day, you've got to come up with a lot of alternatives, and it will come in different forms, be it car sharing. There are people who will just log on onto the website and says, look, I'm driving to town, do you want to hitch a ride? Or do we will share taxi, because taxis are very expensive also in Singapore. There are surcharges just to get into the city. And then we see a lot of young people form their little clubs and they just say, I'm going to the city tomorrow, I need 3 more passengers, and then in a few minutes, they just get their carpool.
Together, yeah. Sue, I'm looking at you again. Do individual choices make up the sum that most cities actually need? And are a couple of forerunners who think, well, life without a car is the best thing ever since sliced bread. Are those forerunners enough?
I think your original question was perfect in that individual choices are key to whether a system's going to work for the people that are in that system.
Okay.
But if those choices aren't there, then we can't use it. And so what I've been thinking throughout this whole conversation is that this is the heyday for public policy right now. This is so much fun. And I think some public policymakers don't even know it yet. There's a
Serge looks doubtful.
what I'm hearing from private sector especially is that there's huge interest in this, but there's not a platform for having the confidence to innovate. And I think providing the climate, both within public sector, all public sector departments across, from social service to tourism to finance to technology to the usual, planning and development, to have innovation happen across the departments at all levels of government, but also within business. How do we remove the barriers to small startups and innovations? And how do we provide platforms that allow interoperability within the mobility internet, the information internet, and the energy internet? And how do those things interact with each other? And without those kinds of reinforcements by public sector, and without the public sector playing a role as a convener and a link tank and setting up guidelines, not the detailed little policies, but the guidelines. This is what we're all working for. We want private sector, public sector, NGOs to work together in this direction, and we want this to be as open source as possible. So, I saw, will Amazon be the next place? I've heard conversations about, either IT companies or car companies running this space, but then, oh yeah, well, we want to own the space, except we don't want to do that stuff. So really, there's a huge cluster of industries and a cluster of government activities that need to come together. And one of the key things that has to be there is the link tank. And that may not be a government role, but it's, I think, a government role to provide the climate and the legislations and the frameworks and the incentives from funding to move in a connective direction.
By the way, I've seen the gentleman is putting up his hand for a second time, Mr. Pedestrian. But you can sort of come into the discussion and maybe contrast your own experience. Yes, and I think the young gentleman in the third row will be next. So, very quick remark.
Yes, just one thing, that there's a huge difference of having to walk 500 meters to the bus stop or to the station in bad conditions for pedestrians or in good conditions. But that depends on political will also, not only of the transport companies. It depends basically on the municipalities, because they have the responsibility. But if you, on a higher level, will not come into this debate, we will not solve it. So there is a need of political will at all levels.
Thank you very much. The gentleman in the third row has the microphone from the other side.
Hi, my name's Adam Carey. I'm a journalist from Melbourne, Australia. Interested in this discussion, and there was a point made early on about bike share systems and people using bike share. I see these really are very successful in some cities in Europe. There's a relatively recently started bike share system in Melbourne that is actually really quite unsuccessful. And so I'd be interested to hear what it is, what are the factors that have made these systems work, and did they work from the beginning, or were there certain things that didn't work that needed to be ironed out along the way?
Difficult. Do we have an expert on bike sharing? Maybe even in the audience, somebody who could share his view. I think our bike European EDF person has just left. All I can say is that in London, whenever I pass the Barclays stand there, I mean, initially everybody sort of stood around, looked at it, astonished, and now you can actually see people moving on those bikes, and they can leave them everywhere. I know that the Deutsche Bahn, astonishingly enough, here in Germany, had started a scheme like that. a number of years ago, like, I don't want to say 7 or 8, but at least 7 or 8 years ago, and that it's very successful. You know, you arrive at the station, you can, if you don't have much luggage, you can actually rent a bike straight away. I think one of the aspects of it might be the easy accessibility. I do not know how that would contrast with Melbourne. Serge, will you pick up the ball?
In Paris, the coverage of Velib is very wide. They have more than, I don't know the exact figure, but it's more than us. So it means more than 220, Velib station within the very center of Paris. So it's a wide coverage. First one. This could be a key factor of success. The second one is about pricing. What I know, Velib is very cheap. It's not expensive at all. And Paris is a city where a lot of short distance, are being made every day. So this means that Velib could be something bicycle sharing could be is in Paris very relevant. And another key success factor is that in Paris, one out of 2 Parisians don't have a car. So definitely, there are a lot of people. We saw this with everyday users. They said, we really are not in this room, but we are in a crisis context. A lot of people cannot afford to buy a car. It's not about, having philosophical reflections about owning a car. It's just that people just can't. They just can't afford it. And so the bicycle in cities where you have a lot of people that cannot afford a car, and that only have, the public transport that they can enjoy, if the bicycle really fits their requirements in terms of short distance, the pricing is good, and the coverage is okay. This is maybe mostly why Velib is in Paris a huge success.
Sue, would you hasten and would you want to give an answer? You don't have to. You don't have to. The gentleman in the second row with a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Uli Volker from GIZ. I think a very simple answer to your question was that in Australia it's obligatory to wear a helmet. And if you come to get a bike that you want to share and you don't have a helmet, you are illegal driving that bike. So you have to bring a scheme of getting a helmet attached to your bike. That's as simple as that.
Thank you very much. Easy answer to a probably difficult question. And now Sue comes out and...
I'm sorry, I keep on being inspired by the things that people are saying here. So I've been thinking about this, this role of public policy thing, and it comes into the bike share, but it comes in across the board. And it occurs to me, I heard, there is a role for public policy, and I wanted to make sure that no one thought that I was thinking it's only the companies. My observation is that we have to accept that there are going to be some places where public policy isn't going to be our first answer. And so we have to find other ways to do things. But really, I've been thinking that nobody's off the hook. I mean, really, you have to have a really strong combination of a really strong visionary framework of public policy along with teeth that back it up, legislation, funding mechanisms, levers, and then you have to have a strong private sector that's also nimble and has that framework to work with and be able to go ahead and is actually committed to the system and to the user and to those public goals. And then the NGOs need to be really well engaged and need to be having, I think, a larger role in helping to define the agenda. NGOs, I think, are quite undervalued in terms of doing a lot of the really original thinking work for moving things forward. And then in terms of academic opportunities for research to move a little away from analyzing the problem as much and more into learning about the solutions, collaborating with folks on the ground and hearing what the real problems are, and developing research agendas and educational agendas and capacity building for the professionals of the future. So there are huge roles for everybody, and all of them have to happen. And I think the matter of when they can happen is different in every place, depending on what the mix is.
Willem, your project has won many awards. Okay, ich werde jetzt wieder auf Deutsch wechseln.
Okay, I'm going to switch into German. Your project has won many awards. You have had many guests to look at your system. Many people came from other cities, from other communities, municipalities to look at your system. Could you tell us where the example of your city was used? Was it transferable? Was it transferred, at least in its core element? There are definitely a number of cities who are developing a car sharing plus public transport connection in all German major cities. Meanwhile, there is a kind of link where public transport works together with car sharing systems. Leipzig has a similar system too. What would be the next steps for you? The next steps for me? Well, I think we have to use IT technologies much more in order to network the different modes of transport. Also, the integrated invoicing billing system is also something we need to develop. And then we have to make this a new and positive lifestyle. And we have the opportunity to do that because young people no longer see the car as the status symbol. For them, status symbols have changed. For them, it's important to own an iPad or whatever other computer. And so it's a different, we need this kind of lifestyle model also in transport. We need to convince young people or everyone alike that they'd better combine different modes of transport to be fashionable. And what you said encouraged me to put more pressure on our politicians and sort of raise their awareness so that they support such systems much more than they did before. So I see an opportunity for us to be successful and raise the potential that we haven't tapped so far. And I really think we can create a new lifestyle, which will be called integrated mobility.
In Singapore, you've mentioned that you have found sort of some solutions on the ground, servicing suburbs. You have a high entry level into Singapore for cars. You have a fantastic IT system which sort of runs on the support of everybody. You know, I download an app on my own free will. I'm not being forced to do it. So where are your next challenges?
I think there's plenty of challenges ahead. I think each time we get into a new space, it creates another challenge for us. And I would say that in Singapore, we do need to push much harder intermodal transportation trends. In other words, you know, it will be a combination of transport modes to complete the journey. And I'm trying, on my side, to even weave in lifestyle into transport, because to me, nobody travels for the sake of traveling. You don't take a bus just to take a bus. A bus is not interesting unless you have to go to school, go to work, do something. And transport touches people few times a day. You don't take planes every day, you don't take the boat every day, but you probably will take, if you take public transport as your choice mode, minimally 4 times a day. Things can happen in that 4 times, you know. And really, this is where we need to work harder to understand what people do, and if we cannot meet their needs completely, what other alternatives can we do? How can we work better with the private sector? Can we pump out information if there are disruptions? Let people know way ahead of time. Tell them where the alternatives are so that they can still continue to do what they need to do. I feel that in Singapore, we have a very vocal public. They have very low threshold for failures or for anything that doesn't work. So you hear them loud and clear. But that itself means that there are a lot of opportunities, and both policymakers, private sector, including technology partners, do need to come together. That's why I said in my first opening, I think this is really the best of times for IT people.
Thank you very much, Serge. Of course, you can't speak of the whole of transport and mobility within Paris. But we've just heard the word, the Singaporean population doesn't tolerate failures. When will you know that your scheme is a success?
There are different keys of success. Anyway, we have a 12-year history. It's a 12-year project because we have this delegation, public service delegation for the next 12 years. So it's a long history, and there are different, thresholds to climb. The first one is the rollout. So the key success now, a key factor of success is about quality of service and reliability. So as I mentioned previously, we do the fleet management, we do all the subscription, we roll out all the station and the cars. So all this has to be managed. And one thing very important and very tricky to manage is you have to manage a triangle, because and find the good gravity center of this triangle. There are three things we have to manage: the number of clients, the number of cars, and the number of stations. And they won't go at the same speed. So too many cars regarding the number of stations, you have an issue of parking the cars. And then the reverse, you have a problem. If you do not have the clients, sufficient clients, the cars don't move. So we have this, and this is the challenge for the moment in the rollout phase. And so to your question, the key success indicator now is about reliability and quality of service. And there's one metric very easy. You just go to the call center and you see if people call. Because when the service is down sometimes on a very specific location, you can see the call center activity, people call anytime, and it's like a boom. And this is the key success factor during the rollout phase till June. And then afterwards, this is the clients and the number of users, which is the business attractivity and as the solution as being a real solution for the people and for the users. So that's the second challenge, which is the number of clients. But for the moment, what I can tell you is on the rollout phase, in terms of quality of service, we are good. And definitely the business dynamic is starting. So we are confident. But we are very humble because we are trying to create a habit and a usage that is not very easy, for people. They are not very used to car sharing. And integrating this new mobility mode, within the existing framework of mobility modes is something they have to learn, and try to understand how it works, how they could combine and play with.
Thank you so much. The last question doesn't address the voice of God, but the voice of God is in this case. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we can say, can public transport, bicycles, car sharing, taxis be better integrated to create urban seamless travel? That question can be answered in a positive way. Yes, it can, and we have seen some examples here. Now, Sue, you've been tackling these issues for many, many, many years. And even I, as just a moderator, have sort of, come across these issues for many years. Like, I believe there was an ITS Congress, Intelligent Transport System Congress in Germany, like 12 years ago. Now, I've heard some of these solutions that we've been talking about and that are being lived now. Are we moving fast enough? Is time running away? Is traffic collapse faster than all these good ideas?
What a great question. Yeah, I'm thinking about that. What's that saying about the future comes to different places at different times? And I think we're in a tremendously exciting time. And I think we are, this sounds trite, but we're at a crossroads because we have all of these incredible opportunities right now that we can use that do take us beyond being tied to the constraints we had before. So I think in some ways we're moving much faster than I ever expected with the bike sharing, with the car sharing, with the embrace of the new systems culture. It's going quicker in the upcoming generation, and I think it's our duty to actually play on that, and maybe not so much think about it's not fast enough, but let's just keep going with the momentum that is there.
I've seen Rosina nod, and Serge wants to grab the mic.
Sure.
Yes.
There's one issue on which speed is crucial. It's about environmental issue. The greening of transport is not quick enough, definitely. Because definitely, you know, environmental issue would go rising. And this is not only about traffic jams, you know. This is about, public health. And so this is about the earth. So the greening of transport does not come, in my viewpoint, really at a speed that is necessary. So we are trying with this initiative in Paris to contribute and to make, this first move. And this was the mayor of Paris that really wants to go to this. But he knows definitely we are not going fast enough, on greening the transport, greening transport.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This discussion here comes to a close, but that doesn't mean that the issue is solved or that you don't have to sort of keep your sleeves up and really keep going at it. And whatever the challenges are in the towns and in the regions where you're working, I wish you good success with that. I thank my absolutely stunningly brilliant panel. Thank you very much, Agnes. Thank you very much, Regina. Willem, keep on the good work. Sue, as ever, your Eagle's view is much appreciated. And Serge, we will keep our fingers crossed, and maybe we see that scheme everywhere across Europe, and maybe also as a solution to maybe Melbourne. Maybe the Melbourneites would prefer electric cars to bicycles. Have a great conference. Have a great 2 days here and good conversations. Thank you.